Good morning. We're here today with Jim Rubart blessing this conference, and he's been speaking, and he has just written a book called Memory Store, which he's going to show you right now. We are actually outside. We're actually outside of the building using a bit of our camping skills that we both discovered that we had done in Seattle, Washington. So here we are. We're very excited, Jim. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, it's great. It's fun.
I have so many questions. You, on your Memories Door, well, first of all, you're a fantasy allegory kind of guy. How did you get into that arena of your writing?
Yeah, it was something that I didn't consciously think about. I am very much a student of the Toni Morrison anecdote where she says, look, if there is a book out there that you want to read and it has not been written yet, you have to write it. And so really it was taking my love of allegory and fantasy and stories that were just a little bit beyond the norm and saying, there's some stories I want to read that have not been written, so I've been writing those stories.
So now, when you chose the genre that you chose, which is based on what Toni Morrison said, how did you come up with fantasy, sci-fi? Because that's a very tough market to.
It is a tough market, and yet my books somehow have been able to stand on their own outside of fantasy and sci-fi.
Yes,
in other words,
they have.
They're more contemporary books with a liberal flavoring of the supernatural in them. And so I've had people that normally would not read a book like my books and absolutely love them. So I've been very fortunate. But essentially what I've done is I've just taken the stories that have been bouncing around in my head that I can't get out of my head and written them down.
Now, you have four main characters in Memory Store.
Yes.
And they're considered the warrior's writing.
Yes.
Now, you also use them, they symbolize the song, the leader, the temple, the teacher. How did you come up with that concept, A, four, and B, those four components?
Well, I had the idea of this prophecy that these four people would change the world. And Dianne, this is the way I write. You're going to love this. A lot of people they have all these ideas and they plot it out. And literally, I sit down with a premise, only a premise. It's a sentence long. And I start writing. And it's like a movie is playing in my head and I just transcribe the movie. So honestly, the way those characters came to me was they just popped into my head as I'm writing.
Wow. Now, you throughout this conference, this has just been a tremendous... there's been a message that's freedom from your past, freedom from guilt. That resonates throughout your writing. It's been resonating throughout this conference. What was it that there had to be some kind of catalyst that made you say, wait a minute, this message has to come through, this message of freedom, this message of let go of your guilt, to be your full Christian, everything that God wanted you to be?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that we all are searching for this theme, this passion, the thing that makes us get up in the morning. And I finally discovered what that was in about 2001. As I look back on my life, everything my life has been about, growing up, has been about freedom, stepping into that freedom that Jesus gives us. I work with authors on their branding and marketing sometimes, and I say, tell me your 3 favorite movies, and I can tell you what the theme of your life is. And people are kind of skeptical, but when I do it for them, they're like, how do you do that? It's not that hard to do. The themes that are in that movie are the themes of a person's life. And so, in my own life, it is absolutely freedom. I want to see people, men and women, set free.
What are your 3 favorite movies?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me that. I knew you were going to ask me that. Okay, so 3 of my favorite movies right now, and that changes sometimes, but is The Matrix, which I think is the best postmodern depiction of the gospel available. It is all about freedom. It's about this man, Thomas Anderson, that becomes Neo, that is set free. And then he is set free to set others free. Another favorite movie of mine is The Shawshank Redemption, which is all about redemption and freedom. right?
Wow, yes.
And then the third movie that it would be a favorite movie is It's a Wonderful Life.
That's
interesting
yes,
you think
that's a digression
completely what?
from, yeah.
And yet, if anybody that knows me says, "Oh my gosh, Jim is incredibly relational. He has a lot of deep relationships with people," and that movie for George Bailey is about relationship and the richness of relationship. But it's also about freedom, because he has this thing hanging over him his whole life, saying, "I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here." And the end of the movie is this huge restoration and freedom for him when he realizes, oh wow, that's not what life's about.
Wow, that's amazing. It sounds like people need to know that Jim does do consulting. just saying here. He is also involved in extreme sports. What are those sports?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy.
And how do they integrate into your story?
They integrate into my story because part of freedom, a lot of freedom, comes from risk.
Yes.
Because we don't want risk. We want to be safe. We want to stay in our cloistered little worlds. And yet Jesus was a man of risk. Paul says anything done without faith, anything done without risk is sin. And so that's why one of my favorite quotes is Ray Bradbury and Annie Dillard are the ones that made this quote famous. And it's, we have to jump off cliffs all the time and build our wings on the way down.
Ooh, so mediocrity is basically sin.
Yes. Staying in the safe arena is sin. I mean, think about that.
That's
and so
an
for
amazing concept.
Yeah, and to answer your question, I didn't mean to get away from it.
No,
Dianne,
that's
I
fine.
apologize.
No, keep
but
going.
For me, I'm terrified of heights. Okay, so for me, jumping out of an airplane at 10,000 feet was huge risk. Huge risk. But if you say, Jim, what are some of the biggest things that you've done in your life that you're most proud of? Facing that fear and jumping out of an airplane would be one of them.
Wow.
So I love, being on the edge of life in my writing, in my relationships, and sometimes physically, like water skiing, like a madman, and dirt biking, skydiving, backpacking, some of these things.
Backpacking where?
Because the Seattle area, in kind of in between Eastern Washington and Western Washington, you have the Cascade Mountains. And there's a town called Leavenworth, which I'm sure you've been to, Dianne.
Have.
And up above Leavenworth is an area called the Enchantments. And it's just this gorgeous, gorgeous stretch of land, these mountains. And so I've been up there 4 times.
I've never been there.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's great to know. Now, what are some of the things that you're going to be writing in the future? You have the Wellspring series.
Yes.
What comes beyond that?
I don't know, and if you've got any great ideas, let me know. My next book, I'm not sure what it's going to be, but I can tell you about the book after that. And this is really fun because, so I've got my Wellspring series will end next May with The Spirit Bridge. So Memory's Door just came out. The Spirit Bridge comes out in May. And then the next book after that, I'm not sure what that is. However, the book after that one is really going to be fun because I'm going to write it with my son.
Oh, that's going to be wonderful. Wow, that's going to be really wild.
It is going to be wild.
Because I understand he does extreme sports,
He does,
too.
yes. So last year he jumped out of a plane at 13,000 feet.
Wow.
And he dirt bikes in the water. Both my sons do this kind of stuff with, I don't know where they get it from.
Gee, who knew?
Yeah, who knew?
Who knew? Now,
but how the book, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
How the book came about is Taylor comes to me, he goes, Dad, I got a great idea for a movie. So what's the idea? Well, think of a computer. You can backspace anything you want and redo it, right? I said, yeah. What if you could backspace your life? And I said, oh my gosh, Taylor, that's so good. I gotta take that for a novel. I gotta write that novel. And he goes, well, okay, if we do it together, you can have the idea.
That's so great idea. Because you use alternate realities in Memory's Door quite a bit.
Yeah,
as a matter of fact, and you also used one of the characters became blind in book 1.
Yeah,
and it was very interesting how you made him see. Can you describe that a little bit and why it appeared to be an analogy of life?
Yeah,
looking at things differently.
Well, it's looking at things differently. And because I think the most fantastical speculative, sci-fi, fantasy, whatever you want to call it, book of all time is also the best-selling book of all time. It's called the Bible.
Who knew?
I know. And so if you look at the Bible, the only difference is we know that those stories are real. And we know that some of the people could see into the spiritual realm. We have this is recorded again and again and again. So I just thought, well, how cool would it be if I took a character that was physically blinded and opened his spiritual eyes in the way that many of the people in the Bible are? How would that play out in contemporary society?
Right. And explain what you did with the eyes.
Yeah, so with the eyes, with my character, and for those of you who have not read Soul's Gate yet, sorry, spoiler, but Reese Roth loses his eyesight in a battle, and in Memory's Door, that eyesight, is restored, and so he's able to see spiritual outlines of people, see darkness and light on them, where we, with physical eyes, cannot see.
And that's only a very teeny tiny part of the book. So it really isn't a spoiler. It's just
true.
one little
that's
component.
True. That's just a tiny little nugget.
That's just a tiny little nugget.
Yeah.
You also mentioned donuts. Is there a reason for that?
Donuts?
Yes.
When did I mention donuts?
You mentioned the orange donuts, the OB.
Oh, yes. Okay. So these orange donuts, and this is not a spoiler either, these little orange donuts in Memory's Door, I came up with that idea because my brilliant editor, Amanda Bostic, at HarperCollins Thomas Nelson, she is the one that made up these things. And so she sent me in the mail these little orange balls, and I said, oh my gosh, I got to put that in the story. Those are so good.
I knew. I said, okay, there's something out of
that.
Yeah,
you're good to pick up on that. Yeah. So I am definitely, for people who know me, there are a lot of Easter eggs. In other words, hidden jokes and hidden things in my books that if you don't know me or know the backstory, it'll go right over your head. So I'm very impressed that you picked up on that.
Now, do you have a critique partner besides your son?
I don't.
Okay.
No, not at this point. I did early on in my career. I don't at this point. However, I do have close friends who are avid fiction readers, who are kind of my beta readers, and I'll send them the first draft and go, tell me what's working, tell me what's not working.
And are they really real with you?
Yes.
They appear to be.
Yes.
Because your book is well written.
Oh,
I was very impressed.
Thank you.
Now, what would you like what message would you like your readers to take from Memory's Door?
This is a very, very personal story, and a lot of my books, just like the orange balls are from my personal life, a lot of the content of my books, the heart of my books, is from my own life. And so as I wrote this book, I was going through a deep period of regret, facing my regrets, kind of a spiritual and personal crisis. And in facing those regrets, I experienced stunning freedom when I did it. It was very difficult, but I experienced this stunning freedom and restoration. And so I put that in the book, and that's what I want for my readers.
That was the book.
That was the book, yeah. And so I want my readers to step away from this book going, wow, I have been set free of regrets, and everybody has them. I have been set free from regrets. That's what I want people to walk away with.
Now, what do you do to get away from it all?
What's that? Get away from it all? What is that? What I do is I love taking long walks with my wife. I am incredibly blessed to still be madly in love after being married 27 years.
Beautiful words.
Yeah, so it's time with my wife. It's time with my boys. For me, restoration is reading. It's dirt biking. It's water skiing. It's camping. It's those things. Those are the things that restore me.
Now, what's one thing that people don't know about you?
People don't know.
Your inner secrets.
I've revealed it all, Diane.
No, you have not.
No, I probably haven't revealed it all. Probably a lot of people would not know that I used to do radio commercials, voiceovers for radio commercials, because that was my background. Probably a lot of people don't know that I used to be a semi-professional magician, although
now there's a nugget right there, because that's what you use in your books.
Yeah, I did. So this is the really cool thing. So there's a number of card tricks in the book, right?
Uh-huh.
So I can do those tricks.
Wow! No wonder. I was wondering about that.
So that's where that stuff comes from.
Oh, now what are some of the challenges you face as an author?
People put you on a pedestal, which is just crazy ridiculous, because it's like I'm the same Jim I was before all this stuff started happening. So you face that challenge where you just want to tell people, oh, come on, it's just me. It's just me.
Now, who's the person who most influenced you with your writing? Besides God.
Yeah, in terms of who influenced me as a writer, I would say C.S. Lewis. I just devoured all his books, fiction, nonfiction, Chronicles of Narnia. So as a writer, I would say it would be him. And as far as a person, it would be my wife, Darcy. She was, oh my gosh, without her, we would not be talking like this. So cliche to say that, I realize.
No,
but
it's those are beautiful words.
Seriously, she's the one that, as I've said before, she has talked me off the ledge so many times. She's got a lawn chair set up out there.
But that's because you're dealing with your soul, your emotions, and they're right out there.
Yeah.
And that's going to be hard.
Yeah, it is.
You kind of want to hide sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Well, I want to thank you so much for taking the time out in our beautiful Indianapolis environment here to do this interview. I'm very excited. I'm very excited about your career. I think it's a genre that needs to develop and grow, and you're going to be one of the spearheads of that growth because of your excellent writing. So thank you very much.
Thank you for all you do for us authors. Seriously, I appreciate that.
Thank you.